Welcome back to the Coast to Coast Sports Podcast. This is Emilio, your host. Michael, Kevin, and Reed are not able to record today, but that's okay. So we'll just have just me today. We're going to start with MLB and MLS standings, just little quick topics. Mariners lost to the Dodgers today, 12-1. That puts them 4.5 games behind the Astros and 3.5 games behind the Athletics, which is they're going to choke like every year. They're going to look like they're going to make the playoffs, and they're not going to make the playoffs, and they're just going to be a mediocre team for a while. It's pretty disappointing. Red Sox still 10 games in front of any other team in the league. That's they really might just go all the way this year. That's what it's looking like. Yankees with 78 wins. They're the team 10 games behind. Indians have 71 in the AL Central. It looks like they took that division pretty easily. Astros 75, Athletics 74, Mariners 71. So they're not out of it. They play the Astros in the Athletics. I know they play the Athletics one more time. I'm not sure about the Astros, but it's definitely possible. If they keep playing how they're playing, though, the Angels might catch up. The Angels could definitely get hot. They have Mike Trout. They have not a great team, but they have a team that could definitely beat the Mariners. Then we have in the NL, we have the Phillies and Braves tied right now in the NL East. And then we have the Cubs, 3.5 games in front of the Brewers, and then 4 games in front of the Cardinals. So that division's pretty open. It looks like the Cubs are definitely going to win it, though. At least they should. They're only 33-29 on the road, though, but most teams don't have a great road record. And then in the NL West, we have the Diamondbacks, Rockies, and Dodgers, all real close. So, still, same prediction as last week. I have the Red Sox winning the World Series, maybe the Yankees, and I'm hoping the Mariners do. But nothing much has changed since. Mariners just, losing some more. And we'll move on to the MLS here. Atlanta is up 3 points on the New York Red Bulls. Then we have New York City FC, 1 point behind the Red Bulls, Columbus, Philadelphia, Montreal, New England, DC United, Toronto, Orlando, and Chicago. So last year's champions, Toronto, not doing too great. 24 points, or 9th place. Not great. Then in the Western Conference, we have SC Dallas. They have 45 points. Sporting Kansas City with 42. And then LAFC with 39. Galaxy, Sounders have been gaining ground lately. They have 35 points. They're in 7th place now. They just routed LA Galaxy 5-0 in Seattle. That was a great game. I could definitely see them make them playoffs if they keep playing well. They don't have a bad team. They just were very underperforming. Clint Dempsey has been getting old, though. But they should be able to make the playoffs. They're not that far behind. They're only 4 points behind 3rd place. So that's should be pretty easy to get that. All right, let's move on to Maryland. So sad news about, I think it was a couple days ago, I believe. A Maryland football player died from a heat stroke after practice. And what's really upsetting is that it was easily preventable. He was telling the coaches he couldn't breathe. Coaches were calling him pussy, trying to motivate him, I suppose, like most coaches do, to get him to play harder, to not complain so much, like you want to have your players tough. But when it's a breathing problem and it's super hot out, you don't want to take things lightly. Football is one of those sports where a lot of coaches will try and push their players a lot more than other sports, which is good. That's why it's a very physical sport. You kind of have to, they have to be able to take abuse physically. And then he had a seizure after practice, and for about an hour from the seizure to when the ambulance was called, nobody did anything about it, which is the shocking part. No, he had a seizure and nobody called an ambulance for an hour, and then he died in the hospital later, which is very, very upsetting. You never want to see that. Never want to see that. Prayers go out, him and his family. All right, let's move on. So, Sportsbook had their top 5 MVP odds for the upcoming season. We're going to go through each one. Number 1 is LeBron. Now, that is very possible. He's in LA now, as 99% of the earth knows. They have a very young team. They don't have a lot of veterans. They signed a couple this offseason to kind of help LeBron with the younger players, I feel like. They have a very young coach, too, which is interesting. But Luke Walton, he was with the Warriors for about a year or two, I believe. He should be able to coach, but the thing is the respect between LeBron and the coach. LeBron has somewhat always taken over that coach role throughout his career, except for in Miami. I feel like Eric Spoelstra definitely had a handle on him. But LeBron, if he has an amazing season and the Lakers get a top 4 seed, I feel like he probably could win the MVP. It depends on some other players, like if, let's say, Steph Curry or KD gets injured and then the other one performs really well and they still get a top 2 seed, I feel like one of them could definitely get the MVP. And then in Houston, if they perform really well again, Harden might get the MVP again. It depends. He puts up really good stats, has really good regular seasons. But LeBron, he definitely could. He's still... So a lot of people are saying he's still in his prime, which is just not true. Physically... Well, actually, it's not true physically. Physically and athletically, he is not in his prime anymore. 2013... and back when he was younger, that was his physical prime. He's still putting up prime stats, though. But he is physically not in his prime. It's kind of hard to tell because we've never really seen, at least I've never really seen anything like this, like LeBron. He's, I believe, 33 or 34, and he's still the best player in the league and still putting up some of the best stats in the league. And he's putting up better stats than he was in 2013. Last season he did. Although he did have D Wade and Chris Bosh in Miami, so I feel like it's a little. There's always variables, but it's still insane what he's doing. But it'd be cool to see him win another MVP. I think it would be his 5th or 6th, I believe. And then number 2 odds we had Anthony Davis with the Pelicans. He is an MVP caliber player, but he is not going to win MVP until he has a good team. He's just not going to. On that Pelicans team, he will never win an MVP unless they are a top 4 seed. No MVP has been given out unless they were a top 4 seed, I believe. I think the last one was Russell Westbrook when he averaged a triple-double 2 years ago. But yeah, AD will put up great stats, especially since Boogie's gone. I don't even think they're going to make the playoffs, to be honest with you. They lost Rondo, they lost Boogie. They lost the best center in the league, I believe, arguably top 2. They lost Rajon Rondo, great floor general, great backup to Drew Holiday. They still have Drew Holiday. He's good. He might be able to step it up this year. Obviously, they still have Anthony Davis. They signed Julius Randle, who's a good player, but he's not going to be able to replace Boogie. Plus, he's a power forward as well. Yeah, I don't see Anthony Davis getting MVP. He probably will get top 5 MVP voting, but he won't win it. Unless there's some miracle that they get a top 4 seed, which in the West it looks impossible for the Pelicans. At the number 3 odds, we have James Harden. He won it last year. They lost Trevor Ariza. They gained Carmelo Anthony, so I don't know how that's going to work defensively at all. And they played really good defense last year, especially in the playoffs against the Warriors. They were shutting them down. The problem is going to be Chris Paul being able to stay on the floor, and if Melo will accept a third option role. Now in OKC, he was very scrutinized. He still is for not coming off the bench. I think in Houston it's a little bit different because they don't have much. It's pretty much at power forward him or Ryan Anderson coming off the bench, starting, and I would rather have Carmelo Anthony starting in that situation because he's just better than Ryan Anderson. There is an argument that you would want to have him come off the bench for that little extra boost, but I think in Houston he'll start, but he'll play different at different times than Chris Paul and James Harden. Definitely, because he's still good. He's still above average NBA player that can score 16 to 20 points a game. It depends on where he's playing, though. In that D'Antoni system, you can see him averaging 20 points a game, I believe, at his peak, at his maximum, which would be good for him. He made a lot of money, 25 mil, which is insane. But back to James Harden, though, he definitely could win MVP again this year if they get a top 2 seed. They probably will if they get a top 2 seed, so we'll see about that. And then number 4, we have Giannis. So the Bucks are very interesting this year. They lost Jabari Parker, but he didn't really play last year. Chris Middleton is back. He's not injured. I think Brogdon is back. It's going to be interesting because the East lost LeBron. That's an extra playoff spot potentially for the East. And John Wall is going to be back, so I feel like the Wizards are going to be a top 4 seed, which means at best I feel like the Bucks have the number 5 seed, which isn't MVP unless he puts up insane stats, 30 plus points a game, like six rebounds, 6 assists, like 2 steals and like a block and a half or something. If he puts up insane stats, he definitely could win it. And again, all of these players winning MVP is all dependent on how the rest of the league plays out. Plus, there's always injuries every single year, so you could definitely see one of these players get injured. Obviously, we don't want that to happen, but it's more than likely going to happen that a superstar is going to get injured, maybe more than one. And then at number 5, so yeah, I don't think Giannis is going to win. I feel like the front runners are LeBron and James Harden. I feel like one of those two could win it because LeBron's always in the conversation, and Harden, if they have another good season, definitely will win it. And then at number 5, they had Kawhi Leonard. Now, This was interesting to me. I'm not sure how I feel about this one because he's in Toronto. Now, so DeMar DeRozan was the leader of the team last year, and they got the number 1 seed, but he wasn't really in MVP talks. Now, if Leonard plays well and they get a number 1 seed, what is that? How is that different from what DeMar DeRozan did? Because they have the same players, essentially. Still have Kyle Lowry, still have Anunoby, they still have Valanciunas. They just traded DeMar DeRozan for Kawhi Leonard. Now, Kawhi Leonard isn't starting for the first 3 months of the season, I believe. So that will be interesting to see how the Raptors do. I don't feel like they're going to do too well without Kawhi Leonard there, with just Kyle Lowry and Valanciunas. They might not even... They might be in the playoff picture. They might not be. But if Kawhi comes back from his injury and starts playing for the Raptors and they get a top 2 seed in the East, I feel like he could have a good chance at winning MVP. Especially because the year after he got injured and everybody thought he was going to come back because it wasn't that bad of an injury, he was a front runner for MVP. Kawhi was a MVP front runner preseason, and we can't forget about that. But then again, there is the thing where the Spurs, very good organization, Greg Popovich, possibly greatest coach ever. He's up there, definitely top 3. He could have just been benefiting from that system. A lot of players have recently and throughout their career have benefited from that system. Like Ginobili. Ginobili as a player is not as good as the Spurs made him look, essentially. That's not a knock against him. He's still a very good basketball player. Just the Spurs make everybody look better usually. Rudy Gay. I think Rudy Gay's back on the Spurs. I'm not sure about that, but he played well there. But I definitely think Kawhi could win. I feel like DeMar DeRozan is going to do really well in San Antonio. If he benefits from Popovich like Kawhi did or some other players did, he could. I think DeMar could be in an MVP conversation if they make the playoffs, but he definitely won't win it. But yeah, that's top 5 MVP odds. We're gonna move on to ESPN. Came out with their playoff predictions for the NBA next season. We're gonna go through the East, each seed, and then we're gonna go to the West. Same thing. For the East, the number 1, they have the Raptors. Now, I'm not sure if this came out before it was reported that Kawhi wasn't going to start the first 3 months or after. Either way, I don't think that's going to happen. Especially when players get traded, it takes a while for chemistry and the team to bond on the court. And the Kawhi situation is so much different than any other situation as well, where it could definitely be a problem. Now, he is a very good player, top 5 when he's healthy, I believe. But with him not starting the first 3 months of the season, I don't think they can get the number 1 seed. Maybe if he started, it's a possibility because he's better than DeMar DeRozan, and they still have the same roster. So it's definitely a possibility, but he's not starting the first 3 months reportedly, so I don't think that's going to happen. Number 1 or number 2, we have the Celtics. Now, I think the Celtics are going to get the number 1 seed. They have a very good team. If KD hadn't gone to the Warriors, that team could possibly win the NBA Finals. I believe it is a possibility. They have Kyrie starting point guard. They have Jaylen Brown, I believe, at shooting guard starting. Maybe Marcus Smart. I'm almost positive Jaylen Brown, though. Small forward, they have... They do have a roster problem, though, because they have a lot of forwards. They have Brown, Tatum, and Hayward's going to be back, so I don't know how that's going to work. Maybe Tatum or Hayward at the power forward. We're in a small ball lineup with Brown at shooting guard, and then Hayward and Tatum, one or the other, at small forward. Not sure really how that's going to work. We'll see. But Brad Stevens is an amazing coach. We'll see. They still have Terry Rozier. They have Al Horford, great defensive player, great team player. They just have a very talented team. And I feel like they got the number 2 seed with Gordon Hayward out the whole season and Kyrie out for a good part of the season. And they still made the Eastern Conference Finals and was 1 game away from going to the NBA Finals without Kyrie and Hayward. So I believe that they definitely have barring injuries, they will get the number 1 seed, I believe. I almost want to say it's a lock. But then at number 3, they had the 76ers, which I agree with that. I have them number 1 or not, number 2 or number 3. They have a good team. A lot of people are saying that they got lucky with the 16-game win streak last year and the schedule was super easy. Now that may be true, but they still won a playoff series, and they did choke against the Celtics, I believe. They definitely could have played better. Ben Simmons scored 1 point. Embiid missed that shot. That's all in the past. They're young. Ben Simmons was a rookie. We'll have the Ben Simmons rookie debate maybe another time. And Joel Embiid is still a young player. He's still developing. They're all developing. They have a very young team. They have a very good team, and I feel like they have a possibility to go to the finals this year as well. Yeah, they have a very good team. I feel like this is kind of where the Eastern Conference drops off. Those top 3 teams would almost be a lock. Would probably be a lock to make the playoffs in the Western Conference. But this is where the East drops off. Because at number 4, they have the Pacers. Now, I feel like that's a little high for the Pacers. They overachieved last year. Now, that's not saying they can't do it again this year, but it might not. It most likely won't happen. Especially with John Wall back with the Wizards. But the Pacers, I can see them getting the 5th seed. Definitely the Pacers. Maybe Victor Oladipo most likely improved this offseason. I really hope he did. He's a very good player. Team chemistry probably improved. The whole organization improved most likely. Hopefully, that's what you aim for every year, is to improve as an organization and as a team, and players individually as well. Everybody is improving, and I feel like they should get the number 5 seed. 4 is a little too high. They're not as good as the top 4 teams in the East, but they definitely could. They could definitely make some noise in the playoffs as well. I'd like to see that. Number 5, they have the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, I was talking about this earlier with Giannis as MVP. This is it's an interesting team. They could definitely get the 5th seed. That's a possibility for them. It obviously helps that they have Giannis, bona fide superstar, who is impossible to stop, and he doesn't even have a jump shot, which is scary. He's like KD, but can't shoot. A little bit longer than KD, though. He's so good. He's averaged, I think, 28 without shooting 3-pointers. But I could see them at the 5th seed. Definitely could. Like I said, anywhere from 5th to 8th. They're kind of a wild card team. And then at number 6, they had the Heat. I don't have the Heat making the playoffs this year. They don't have a superstar. They still have Hassan Whiteside. They don't know what they're doing with that. Everybody's getting older on that team. Goran Dragic is, I believe, in his 30s. That's just not a team that I see making the playoffs. Even with the Cavs dropping out of the playoffs this year, I don't see them making the playoffs. It's just a very team-oriented team because they don't have a superstar. They run the ball through everyone, which definitely hurts because when you need just one person to step up and score the ball, they don't have that. And that is important. No matter what you say, how important team ball is, yada, 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 you need a superstar to be able to win and make the playoffs. So I don't see them making playoffs, but they had them at the 6. I don't know. That's obviously high. But at number 7, they had the Washington Wizards. Now that's pretty disrespectful to me. I'm not gonna lie. That's which if John Wall is back, they definitely probably will get a top 4 seed for the most part. I feel like they're underrating them a lot this year. The Wizards, I don't think they will, but they have a chance to go to the finals this year. Very small chance, but I feel like only 4 teams in the East have a chance to go to the finals. And the Wizards is one of them. They have John Wall, they have Bradley Beal. They improved their worst position on this team, which was center. They got Dwight Howard. And look how good John Wall made Marcin Gortat look. He's probably going to make Dwight Howard look better. They have Otto Porter. That's a very good team, especially in this weak East. They definitely are underrated. And then at number 8, they had the Detroit Pistons. Now, I think this is them and the Wizards were a little bit underrated, definitely. The Pistons have Blake Griffin. They have Andre Drummond. Reggie Jackson's going to be back. They have a good team. When you have 2 potential all-stars on your team, one player that used to be a superstar before injuries, that's a good team. They definitely underrated. They definitely could be a top 5 seed, 5 through 8. Blake Griffin. I feel like people are underrating Blake Griffin, especially because he's the best player on this team, and like he used to be the second best player on the Clippers with Chris Paul and DeAndre Jordan. They were making the playoffs, 3rd, 4th seed every year. Used to be. They never had it click in the playoffs, which I mean, obviously, I don't see a team ever with Blake Griffin leading them, their best player, making the conference finals or the finals. But the Pistons definitely underrated. They should be higher. Very good team. And now we're going to move on to the Western Conference. Number 1, not really a surprise. It's the Warriors. They added the best center in the league after they have a whole all-star lineup. So, this season might be another boring season in the long run, but the regular season should be interesting. Warriors, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, and DeMarcus Cousins. That's something you would like. That's like those, like, you have $15 to make a team. That's like the sort of team you would get. That's better than that because you have, it's hard to explain how good they are. They're the best team in NBA history. There is the slight chance that DeMarcus ruins the team. I don't think that will happen because they're so good and he's only on a 1-year contract. So even if And plus, he's not playing the beginning of the season. He's not playing a good part of the season because he tore his MCL or ACL, I believe. It was a knee injury, and that's tough to come back from. But he's still very good. But he's going to have a lot of time to transition, a lot of time to recover. So they pretty much have another ring this year. Number 2, which is surprising, is the Utah Jazz. Now, at first thought, I thought this was a bad pick. It's the Utah Jazz. They're not that good, right? Then I thought about it. Last year they had about, I think, 48 wins. That's with Rudy Gobert only playing 56 games. That's with Donovan Mitchell not starting at the beginning of the season. And that's with him. So he didn't start the beginning of the season. Then he became a starter. And then eventually, throughout the season, became the star that he is. How they ran the offense through him. They're going to be playing with Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell as a star for the whole season. That I could see them winning 55 games, and that could be the number 2 seed. And then we'd have to start talking about it. It's just a long. If that happens, and I could definitely see it happening. I now that I think about it, it might happen. I feel like the Rockets still have the number 2 seed, but the Jazz could get a top 3 seed. And if they do get the number 2 seed with 55 plus wins, we have to start talking about Donovan Mitchell in a whole nother conversation, Rudy Gobert in another whole big man conversation all time, because with each of their impact on the team, that's very impressive. Last year was very impressive with 48 wins. Imagine if they win 55 this year. But at number 3, they have the Houston Rockets. Like I talked about this earlier. They added Carmelo. They lost Trevor Ariza. They lost defense, essentially, is what they lost. Luckily, they got Clint Capella back. It's pretty much the same team, just a little less defense, a little more offense. And you never know, that could work for them. I feel like in the regular season, they're still going to be a very good team. Top 2, I feel like. Probably number 1 seed again, we'll see. But very good team. James Harden, most likely MVP. If Chris Paul stays healthy, if everybody stays healthy, then that's a good team. I have nothing wrong with them at number 3. But number 4, they put the Denver Nuggets, who didn't make the playoffs this year, or last year, in the Western Conference, who just added LeBron James to the Lakers. So I'm not really sure how they think they're going to be at the number 4 seed. It's blasphemous to me. That's insane. The Nuggets are a good team. Yes, they added Isaiah Thomas, who to me is past his prime. They added Michael Porter Jr. in the draft, who might not even play all year. We don't know. And even if he does, he might be a bust because of his injuries. We don't know. And they have an awful, awful defense. Sure, Paul Millsap is back, but that's still an awful defense. Nikola Jokic is a very good player. No defense. He's awful defender. They have an awful defending team. And sure, they have a good offense, but that isn't enough to give them a top 4 seed, especially in the Western Conference when they missed the playoffs and nothing much has changed. In fact, the Western Conference has gotten better. So I don't know why they're at number 4 seed. I'll do anything I'll take any bet that they don't make the number 4 seed. And then even like almost equally as crazy is they have the Timberwolves at number 5, who just made the playoffs by 1 game. They beat out the Nuggets in the last game of the season to make the playoffs, which doesn't make any sense to me. The the Eastern I can see more. I agree with more. The Western Conference, it's with these predictions is it doesn't make any sense. Timberwolves at number 5, especially with the Jimmy Butler drama. They're not going to be good. I mean, they're obviously going to make the playoffs. They might make the playoffs, but they're not going to be top 5 worthy by any means. Jimmy Butler's going to leave after the season most likely, and after that, they're going to drop off again. They're going to make the playoffs for 1 year, which was last year. I don't think they might not make the playoffs this year. They're going to drop off again. That losing streak pretty much Last year almost never happened for them. They got the 8th seed. They won one game. They got 4-1 by the top seed Rockets. It's almost like not making the playoffs when you get the 8th seed, unless you win, obviously. But that rarely happens, and they're just not a very good team. I don't like the direction they're going. But 4-5, definitely wrong. Number 6, they have the Thunder. I think this is the seed they got last year, if I'm not mistaken. I think they got 5, but I feel like they're going to be better without Carmelo Anthony, and Andre Roberson's going to be back. I feel like they're going to be a top 5 team in the Western Conference. They might even get super high seed without Carmelo. I feel like he definitely hurt them more than he helped them, and they could definitely be better. Russell Westbrook might be better, but I don't see them that low, but I don't see them super high either. So in around that area, I think they'll be. Number 7, they had the Pelicans. Like I said earlier with Anthony Davis, I don't really need to explain it again. They most likely won't make the playoffs. They lost Boogie, they lost Rondo. They have Drew Holiday, they signed Julius Randle, but they don't have anybody else. Anthony Davis cannot carry the Pelicans to a playoff spot in this Western Conference anymore. He just can't do it anymore. No matter how good he is, he just can't do it anymore. And at number 8, they had the Portland Trailblazers. I don't have them making the playoffs either. I feel like after they got swept by the Pelicans last year with just Anthony Davis, and Anthony Davis doesn't even make the playoffs this year, that's really disappointing. I'm not gonna lie. They need to blow it up. They need to trade Dame or CJ. They need to try and get rid of some bad contracts. They need to start over maybe. And then as you may have noticed, the West, they didn't have the Lakers in there. LeBron. Okay, so they didn't have LeBron. They didn't have the Lakers in the playoffs. So that's very surprising to me. LeBron is essentially a lock to make the playoffs to me. He makes the playoffs every year. Last 8 years he's made the final. I think it's 9 now maybe, but it's 8, and he's going to make the playoffs, especially with this Lakers. They added a couple veterans. It's just not a question. I feel like they're one of the locks to make the playoffs in the Western Conference Finals. The Western Conference playoffs. That was the standings. That was a podcast. Go ahead and share it around. Go ahead and follow us on social media at Coast to Coast Sports. We have Twitter and Instagram. We're on YouTube as well. Just go follow us. Go share us around. Leave a comment if you're on the YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe. We'll see you next time.